Back in 2019, Chevy launched the Silverado 1500 Z71, promising a truck that was lighter, stronger, and more capable. It was meant to prove that Chevy could stand toe-to-toe with Ford and Ram, but here we are, 6 years later, and this truck is just another used full-size pickup fighting for attention in a market that's moved on. So was this Silverado ever worth your money? Or was it just another marketing exercise to convince die-hard Chevy guys that everything was fine while the competition lapped them? Let's take a long, hard look at the 2019 Silverado 1500 Z71 6 years later and see if it holds up or if it was just outdated the moment it left the factory. Let's go ahead and start with the design. When Chevy revealed this thing, they said it was bold and aggressive. And sure, if bold means slapping on the biggest grille possible and calling it a day, then yeah, mission accomplished. But if you look around today, every truck has this same look. Massive front end, sharp headlights, squared off body. This thing doesn't stand out anymore. Chevy shaved off 450 pounds by using a mix of aluminum and high strength steel. The doors, hood, and tailgate, all aluminum. The rest, it's still steel. That sounds good on paper, but in the real world, that aluminum dents if you so much as look at it wrong. Ever dropped a tool near your truck? Congratulations. Your tailgate now has a permanent reminder of that mistake. Meanwhile, Ford and Ram were out here adding real innovations. Ram had the split tailgate and coil spring rear suspension. Ford had aluminum body that actually worked without feeling flimsy. Chevy, they gave you a lighter tailgate and said, good enough. Now, if you really wanted to see where Chevy cut corners, step inside. Even in 2019, this interior was behind the curve. Hard plastics everywhere, a gauge cluster that looks like it came from a mid-2000s Malibu, and an infotainment screen that barely felt competitive back then, let alone now. Look at what Ram was doing at the time. 12-inch screens, real metal trim, digital gauge clusters. Ford wasn't slacking either, giving buyers more advanced interiors that actually felt modern. Meanwhile, Chevy's engineers looked at the dashboard and said, yeah, this works. And sure, you got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but the problem is those were expected by 2019, not a selling point. The seats, yeah, they're fine. The climate controls, simple. It's a functional truck interior, but at this point, functional shouldn't be the best thing you can say about it. 6 years later, everything about this cabin just screams cheap. The only positive here is physical buttons. At least Chevy didn't go full touchscreen everything mode, like some manufacturers did. But when your best feature is that you didn't remove buttons, that's not exactly a win. Yes, the 5.3-liter V8, aka GM's "we're not ready to move on" engine. It makes 355 horsepower and 383 pound-feet of torque, which was already looking a little weak in 2019 compared to what Ford and Ram were offering. Paired with either an 8-speed or 10-speed automatic, it was a powertrain designed to feel fine. Just fine. And that's the issue. It's not that this engine is bad. It's actually one of the most reliable full-size truck engines out there. No turbos to fail, no overly complex hybrid systems, but it's boring. Ford's 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6 already had more power, more torque, and better fuel economy. Ram had the 5.7-liter Hemi with e-torque, which gave better low-end power and improved mileage. And Chevy, they stuck with what they knew and hoped you wouldn't notice how outdated it was. The 8-speed transmission. If you got one of the early models, you know it shifts like it's having an identity crisis. The 10-speed is better, but neither option was class-leading. 6 years later, this powertrain is still running. It's durable, but it was never the best. And at this point, it lasts a long time isn't exactly exciting when better options exist. Driving the 2019 Silverado today is exactly like driving it in 2019. Nothing has changed. It rides okay, but it's not as smooth as a Ram. Steering is light and numb. If you want road feel, you're in the wrong vehicle. The suspension is stiff, but not unbearable, which is another way of saying just deal with it. With the Z71 package, you get Rancho shocks, skid plates, and a lock-in rear diff. That sounds impressive until you realize that none of those things make this truck an off-road beast. It's good for dirt roads and light trails, but if you're thinking of doing anything serious, get a Raptor or a T-Rex, or better yet, a Silverado ZR2. Because Chevy finally realized people want more from their off-road trucks. So after 6 years, where does the 2019 Silverado 1500 Z71 stand? Let's break it down. On the plus side, it's reliable. The 5.3-liter V8 will probably outlast this all. It gets the job done, it's still a capable work truck. On the downside, the interior is cheap. Even in 2019, it was already falling behind. The powertrain is outdated, Ford and Ram were miles ahead, and it never led in any category. It was never bad, but it was never great either. The 2019 Silverado was always a truck that appealed to Chevy loyalists, not people looking for the best truck. If you need something reliable, it's a solid buy on the used market, if you get a 10-speed transmission and a clean service history. But if you're paying a premium just because it's a Silverado, you're better off finding the used Ram 1500 with a nicer interior or an F-150 with a better drivetrain. So, is the 2019 Silverado a good truck? Sure. But was it ever the best truck? Nope. If you like this review, hit subscribe. Or no, I'm not your dad.